Clarity Convos for Wedding Pros podcast. I'm your host, Aislinn, and today we have a very special guest episode. Kevin Dennis is here with us today. Kevin, can you please introduce yourself and say hi to our audience?
Hello, everyone. I'm Kevin Dennis. I'm the owner of Fantasy Sound Event Services in Livermore, California, which is in the San Francisco Bay Area. I started my business in '89, so I'm old is what I say when I say that. We've been around for a long time. So I started out as a DJ many years ago, and I did it because I was a nerd and I wanted to meet girls. And that was my whole plan. And never in a million years did I think it would become my career. So, and my life basically is what I've ended up doing. But I also own a wedding blog called WeddingIQ, and I do a couple podcasts, and we're going to jump in it today about associations. But I've been presidents and been on many boards of several associations, and we'll let that organically come through as we talk about it on the podcast.
Yeah, I love that you got into DJing because you have such a DJ voice.
Oh, thank you.
like radio voice where it's just kind of like you could talk about the weather or talk about anything and I would just want to listen.
And that's what I wanted to do in college, actually. So I started out as radio, television broadcasting and doing that. And I like learning how to put makeup on myself and do all the different things. But I had a radio show for a little bit on the college radio station. And then we would do the news. It was really silly. You had to be in the cafeteria in order to see what we did, but we did it, and we wore makeup and did all the different things that you had to do. And so, but that was what I originally wanted to do with my life.
That's so fun. When I was in college, I had 2 degrees, and one of them was in advertising, and the advertising school was part of the journalism school.
Oh.
So we would have all of our friends who were doing the TV journalism or the newspaper journalism. I'm sure it's changed a lot since I was in college.
Yeah, and that is probably a dead format now. So
Yay. Well, today we're going to be talking about tapping into industry associations, and I'm really excited about this because both of us have been around for a really long time when it comes to the wedding industry, and it's changed so much with what associations are out there, what's even available to people. So I'm really excited because not only do you host multiple podcasts and you have blogs and you've got DJing, you've got all of these different things that you do, you are also part of quite a few associations. So I think the very first thing I kind of want to talk about is just what are the options these days? It's 2026. What are we looking at?
So in the wedding industry, there's lots of local associations out there. In your local area, there's a lot of people. So even in my area, I have a little, so we are 45 minutes east of San Francisco, which means none of us in our little valley out here wants to go in the city because it's so far out there. And so when I found myself, I was going to ILEA or an MPI event in the city or a NACE event in the city, I was networking with people from the city. And so I wanted to meet with people that I do business with. So we started our own little networking group called Tri-Valley Wedding Pros. So that is a thing too. So a lot of local associations. And if you don't have one, I encourage you to start one in one way or another. But you got that. And then the big one, there's ABC, there's WIPA, so there's lots of options and flavors and different things. So hopefully, I always say, find your tribe, people that you associate with and people that you connect with.
I love that. I also love that you weren't seeing what you wanted in the city, and so you created something for yourself. We've had other people on the podcast. Becky Hart came on, and she has her own association networking event in Oregon. And so I love hearing, what was the origin story for that? When you were all right, let's make something.
Well, I'll be honest. So it was me and a couple of the venues that I work with all the time, we're on their preferred vendor list and stuff. And there was a group of us, and we would all kind of carpool into the city and go to these different events. And at one of the events, we were there's just no one here for us, Yeah. But but with that said, there are people. So you got to turn it into a positive. So, even though I don't like to work in the city, maybe someone there can get me an event up in Napa or down in San Jose or out in Oakland. There's other areas too. So I was I was still getting business out of it, but not connecting with my local people. So that's when we, on the car ride home, we were yeah, we should start something here and da-da-da-da-da. And then about a month later, we went to the next event and we talked about it again. And then that's kind of where it started. And when I started Tri-Valley Wedding Pros, we are now in year 13 or 14. I would have to
Wow.
go back and look. I can't remember, but we just started out as a networking group that got together 4 times a year. So I was also heavily involved with WIPA at the time. So I totally stole the WIPA model, because WIPA is all about 4 events a year, and then you could have a gala and a couple networking events. But so I stole the WIPA model. I'm like, 4 times a year seems manageable to get people to come together. And so we did that, and we started networking. And in about maybe 5 or 6 years, and everything was free. We just brought people together. The venues were hosting it. And then about maybe year 4 or 5 is when people are like, we want more out of this. How can we get more out of it? And then that's when we started turning it in. I really dipped into WIPA, I'll be honest with you, installed we did education, we did a dinner, and we really kind of turned it into something. And it's kind of crazy because, obviously COVID really affected, what we were doing and how, just across the board for associations, COVID was rough. I happened to be the national president for WIPA when COVID hit. So
Wow.
I really was on that side of it and really understood like how it was affecting the members and all. I mean, it was a nasty thing. So, but we kind of put Tri-Valley Wedding Pros obviously on pause because in California, we couldn't do anything for almost a year. We were locked down for a year. We closed. I remember March 17th is when we officially closed. The weekend before, we had a bunch of weddings. And then we didn't do our next event until February 14th because it was Valentine's, and that's the only reason I think I remember was Valentine's Day the following year. And that was when we did literally our first event back into the world, and we were starting to do things again. So, but we kind of put Tri-Valley Wedding Pros on hold during that time. And then we kind of, when the first 2 events back, we were like, let's go back and people just wanted to gather. So we just got people back together and networked again, and then slowly reintroduced the format. But in the last year, it's taken off to the point where we have all our venues booked out through this 2026 and half of 2027, and we have, and it's kind of cool because now speakers out there in the world have come to us, and people are now coming to, hey, I'd love to speak at your group. How do we get connect? And it's kind of taken on a life of its own, and it really has taken off. So it's really fun, and we're having our next event here in the end of this month. And we're doing something kind of fun and different. Instead of education, we're doing headshots. Start off the new year with a new headshot, right? It started fun. I saw that from another group that I actually spoke. I spoke at a group at Central Florida Wedding Association. I spoke at their conference 2 years ago, and so I'm on their mailing list now. And they did it about midtime last year, and I was like, this will be a perfect Tri-Valley Wedding Pro event. So I
love that. I have friends who are in the Central Florida area. I part of my wedding career was actually there for a couple of years. So
was it really?
So I still have friends back there.
It's impressive because they're a small little group. I'll be honest with you, but they're a mighty group, and they are
tight knit. I love that.
And they put on a conference that rivals some of these national conferences. It's very, very impressive what they do.
Yeah. Well, you've got all the hospitality people there.
That's true.
You're competing against Disney hospitality when you live in the Central Florida area. Standards are sky high. I love that. I think one thing I really loved that you said is that it literally was born in a car ride, home. Basically, you're well, I think we should probably just do something about this.
Yeah.
And I think that's such a creative entrepreneur thing to do. It's just be well, it's not working the way I want it to work, so I'm going to make my own. And I love that it's it went from just start to growing into something that eventually scaled into something truly epic. So I love that there's such a journey along the way.
Yeah, and I love that even some of the venues are fighting. Hey, we haven't hosted one in a while. How do we get and that's how we're starting to get booked so far out. It's really amazing.
Yeah, when I was a wedding photographer, it is actually Central Florida. This was the time period that I was doing this. I went to a couple of different things where venues were hosting events for planners, and then they invited photographers, just 1 or 2 photographers to photograph the event. And so I loved how Central Florida did a really good job with just that kind of stuff. They just did a lot of events that were really just to give back to the community. So I like that that's a part of associations. And I'm curious, all the associations that you're a part of these days. What are some of the like give back events that you guys do?
Oh, the give back.
Well, like the headshots, I feel like is a really great
Oh,
example.
yeah, that is a good example. The headshot is there. I think the give back is the education, because people come and you're going, like last year we had an attorney come out and in the middle of wedding season in July, and it really got people thinking about like, oh crap, I better look at my contract and tune it up. And but I think the education and giving people education is a really good give back. So our NACE chapter, we were part of the Silicon Valley NACE, and unfortunately our NACE chapter was a COVID casualty. And and we were never ever to get it back up and running again. But with that said, I'm still heavily involved with NACE on the national side. But we used to do we would do canned food drives, or we would do the one that that everyone rallied behind the most is we would do a backpack. So we right around our August event, everyone backpacks, and there was an association that was looking for backpacks filled with school supplies, and we would get anywhere from 100 to 150 backpacks, and we would go drop them off at the group, the nonprofit group that was putting this together for kids that parents couldn't even provide them with a backpack. So, and it was funny, of all things that we did, everyone rallied behind the backpack one the most. It was the one that I really remember. And I was like, talking about it, I was like, how do we start that with the Tri-Valley Wedding Pro? I was like, because that was one thing we were kind of talking about. Maybe we can do that again this year, but we were trying to find some way to give back to the community as well as, because the community, we all have businesses, and the people give us so much. So it's nice to give back every once in a while.
I love that so much. And I think like if you're listening to this episode and you're thinking, okay, I want to be a part of some association, I don't know what it could look like, I also want you to look into the values of the associations that you choose to join. Some of them are not going to have give back. Some of them are not going to have education. Some of them are just going to be about networking. And there's nothing wrong with that.
No.
But choose what makes sense for you and choose what makes sense for your brand ethos and values. So I think that's actually a really great segue into like just kind of talking about like some of the common misconceptions that people have about associations. A lot of people think that like you are either like a board member or you're just a member. And like that is like the only like two options you have. So I kind of wanted to talk about like what it could look like if somebody wants to join an association.
Well, and it's funny. So I'm a big believer, if you really want to get something out of an association, you have to give something to the association as well.
Agreed.
Not just your money, but you have to give some time. And so, and most of that you end up eventually, when you do go down that road, you end up on the board as well. But there's, like my local MPI group has a strong committee base. So you can, get your feet wet and just help with the gala, or you can help with the education side, or there's a bunch of different things that you can just be a part of if you don't have a lot of time to give. So that's the other thing. If you
guys could just ask. You could just literally go to the board and be like, how can I help? Put me to work. Like, it's not that fancy.
No, and even be like I'm going to be honest with you. One of the greatest things you could offer to do is be a greeter at the events, because one, it's a good way to meet. It's the easiest and best way to meet everyone. And it's funny. So one of the girls in my office, her name's Lindsay. She does all the check-in at all the Tri-Valley Wedding Pros events. She literally knows everybody's name and everybody's business. And I'm like, Devil Wears Prada's coming back again this year. But I'm like the Miranda Priestley, where she has to whisper in my ear who that person is. Because I'm just like, because I don't, sometimes I'll forget. And she's like, she look at me, she goes, idiot. It's the, she gets front. She goes, you've met this person 3 times, but anyway, you meet so many people. She's got
little notes on each person for you. I love that.
No, it's not that extreme, but she'll whisper in my ear, they did on Devil Wears Prada. But anyway, so being a greeter is a good way to go, because you meet everyone in a non-confrontational way, if that makes sense. Because sometimes people, when they get going in a networking group, people will close themselves off and not be very open and welcoming or any of that kind of stuff. So being a greeter, that's a good way. I really say that's a good one. But
that's great advice.
But the board, eventually you do work up to a board position. But the greatest advice I can give anyone that is thinking about being involved in, whether it's a small little committee member or even showing up to greet, is you got to do it. You got to treat it like it's a part-time job, because if you are slow to respond to emails, you're late showing up for board meetings, or like, let's use the greeter example again. You were supposed to be there at 4:45, so the event starts at 5, so you can start greeting, but you show up at 5:30. That
Oof.
is just, so the example is you're going to start, it will have the total polar opposite effect that you think it would have, because people are like, oh, I'm not going to refer that person because they're always late. Oh, that person never responds to emails. That, if you say, hey, next week I'm going to bring a list of X, Y, and Z together, and you don't do it. So then people are like, ooh, I don't know if I want to do, but so it can have the total polar opposite. So if you are going to be, because I've seen it so many times from being on the board, and one, you won't be asked to be on the board again. Like when the elections come around, people will go, yeah, you're probably not a fit because you haven't done what you're supposed to do. And it just looks bad for your business. So, and when we're at these associations, it's about, gaining new relationships, and which relationships will then eventually, equate into business. And so if you are not doing your part, then it's counterproductive. So.
Yeah. So one thing I talk to my clients about is the way we do one thing is the way that we do everything.
Mm-hmm.
If you are showing up late to like a part-time job, you're probably showing up late to the WIPA like events that you like have said that you were going to go to.
Mm-hmm.
If you are like constantly like not answering your emails in a timely manner, you're probably also doing that with your clients too.
Yep.
So I think like if you're listening to this and you're like, okay, well, cool. Maybe I'm not meant to be a greeter. Maybe I'm not meant to be on the board. Maybe that's just like not the space that I'm in right now. One of the other options could be just being a member where there's no responsibilities other than like the things that you have responsibilities for, like paying your dues and like showing up to the things you have responsibilities for. But yeah, I would love to talk about like if somebody is like, okay, I'm not the responsibility person. I want to be just the person in the room. What are some of their options?
Oh, exactly. Attend the events. And that's the biggest thing, because the biggest complaint we would get on the WIPA side when I was the national president is that I'm a member and I get nothing out of it. And then you go back, and it's funny because, WIPA has software. We have a member software that runs everything. So we know, it really tells you how many times they've opened an email. It'll tell you, how many events they've attended and all that kind of stuff. And a majority of the time people would complain they never attended an event. And so you're going to get, again, nothing out of it unless you put something into it. So if you can't commit to going to the events, that should be the baseline. If you can't attend, and granted, you're going to miss one or two here, around. But if you can't commit to going to the events, then you should not be a member. Like, don't waste your money, because you're going to get zero. Other than you're listed on their website, you'll get maybe it's good for your SEO, maybe it's not, but it's just you're going to get nothing out of it, because again, all these associations are about building relationships, and you can't harp on it enough. And if you're out of sight, you're out of mind. And I learned, and real quick, I learned that the hard way when I was a WIPA National President. I worked because I got really known with because when I was the president, I would travel to all the different chapters and to their events. And so I knew people in New York and Atlanta and here and then, all the different cities, but I stopped going to the local association, my ILEAs, my MPIs, the NACE, here locally while I was doing that, because I was so focused there. But it was counterproductive for me, because I was out of sight, out of mind. And so after I was done being on the board, I almost had to reintroduce myself to my local market again, because and that was something I look back on. It was a huge mistake on my part.
Yeah. One thing I say to my clients is we want people speaking our names lovingly and kindly in rooms full of opportunities. And if you are not showing up in those rooms occasionally to make sure that people remember your name, then at some point people are going to stop speaking your name again.
Yeah, you have to show up at least to 70% of the events. If you're, you can again miss one or two here, but if you're not showing up to over a majority, you're going to get nothing out of it. It's a waste of time.
One thing I'd love to talk about is like kind of like the different flavors of associations that there are, because you are a part of so many, you are leading so many of them. You have so much like depth of knowledge around associations. So like, can you talk about like, this might be good for someone who is into X, Y, and Z, or this might be good for someone who has this amount of time. I would love to hear your thoughts on that.
So, okay. So MPI, I know we're talking wedding stuff, but a lot of some wedding folks do, social and corporate. So MPI is a big one. And in my local market, it's a big commit. I'll be honest with you. So that, they have a lot more events than say your WIPA, so there's a lot more things you need to show up to and whatnot. Where in ILEA, like in my market, our ILEA is about every other month. So it's not as big of a commitment, as something that is every month. Because back in the day, I mentioned my NACE chapter was a COVID casualty. We had events monthly. So monthly, Oof. Yeah, exactly. It's funny you say it, but it's a huge commitment to show up every month, to these events. And so it's bigger. Where something like WIPA will have like 4 to 6 events a year. They're required to have 4 education events a year, and then they can put a gala, and then maybe even a couple like happy hours or different things like that. So it's an easier commit, to do something like that. So, and that's the other. So you can ask the question. I don't have anything like that in my area. If you get enough people together, you could start your own WIPA chapter. And they're growing like they've grown. They're growing like leaps and bounds. When I was WIPA National President twice, and so when I was first WIPA National President, there was 0 chapters. We had about 130 members, and we were primarily had members in Northern California, Southern California, and a few sprinkled around the country. That were just learning about it because they went to like Cater Source or a special event or a big a conference like that. And so, so then, when I ended my second year of my first time doing a national president, we had 5 chapters, and so we grew, so we were starting to really grow. And last I heard, they're pushing like 30 chapter, like WIPA's like growing again, leaps and bounds, 4 chapters a year. So if you don't have something in your area, you can get together, and because they have the really perfect formula to do it. And the nice thing is you get a good group of like 6 to 8 of you together that are committed to really starting something. You really can make it go. So
yeah.
Yeah.
WIPA, it's so funny because I know WIPA's been around for a really long time, but I feel like in the past, like probably like 3 years or so, it's just exploded. It's the only thing I hear about at this point.
And randomly, it started in San Francisco. It was started in my market. I didn't get involved with WIPA until year 2 of WIPA, and that's when I got involved. And then I was on the board way too long, so I was part of it, and WIPA was my second part-time job. When I was WIPA president, national president, the second time, I was on a plane at least once a week going to a WIPA chapter or going. Sure,
you got great miles.
I did.
Points.
I did, but but it was I wouldn't take it back for anything, because I really, as I was doing all that, I was learning a lot. I was meeting people across the country, and that's a good thing too. So like if you're, you mentioned you were a photographer in a former life, but like you should have photographer friends all across the country, because if something's going on in your market, or something happened in your area, you can call someone that's not in your market, that's not your competitor, that you can reach out to and say, hey, how would you handle this situation? Or have you had to deal with this situation, and what would you do? Just to get advice from like someone, like I always call it like Switzerland, someone outside your market, someone that can help you, and someone that can really help you kind of, and it's not your competitor, and it's not, you're not spilling the local tea to someone, in your local market. So it's good. And that was one thing I was able to do, is I have friends now all across the country, that I can call on, and it's always fun to see. So
Yeah, I think that it's so important to have things like workshops that you go to or masterminds that you're in or events that you go to. But I think that that should be on top of having things like associations. I think associations is kind of like the foundation
Hmm.
because you want to have the structure, you want to have the networking, you want to have the education that comes from associations. And then on top of that, we have like the extra things like the workshops and stuff like that. And I have friends all over the country too because of like making sure that I was in different markets. I have friends all over the country.
Yeah.
Allison Davis was the education WIPA director, and she asked me to guest speak for a WIPA event. And I was like, this is so cool because I knew you from a completely different like sector of my life, but that like relationship kept going on. So I think like sometimes people get very into their heads about like your local market and very into your heads about like, okay, who is the next person that I need to meet? But if you have a large network, you don't have that kind of fear anymore because you have people all over the country that you can turn to, which I think is just such a cool like reframe.
Well, and if think about it, you're a planner, a videographer, a photographer, even now like DJs and bands are like you can connect and make relationships. And next thing you know, you're doing weddings in other markets. You're doing weddings, all over the place. It was kind of funny. There was a run when I was WIPA president for a while. Some of the local or some of the Southern California photographers were showing up in my market because there was a big trend here in the Bay Area that you needed to get a photographer from Southern California or somewhere outside that you couldn't get a local photographer. And so it was kind of cool because I was working with people that I knew from outside I already knew them already going into it. So it was kind of fun.
I love that. So I think one thing I would definitely want to talk about is like strategies on how to actually use associations. I think we've kind of touched a little bit on this, but I'm sure that you've got some like really good ideas for people who maybe have never been a part of association or they just aren't using it to the fullest ability.
So I'm a firm believer that 2 is your magic number. You don't want to belong to more than 2 associations at one time because if you do belong to more than 2, then now it's becoming a full-time job to attend all the because you'll have multiple events to go to and multiple things, and you're just not going to get the bang for your buck back So I really feel like you focus on 2, and then with that said, really showing up. Like we talked about it earlier, it's just about that should be your baseline. Like you were talking about baseline earlier. The baseline should just be showing up. And then the next is get involved or volunteer in some form or fashion. You don't have to be a board member. You don't have to, but volunteer with an association, whatever. And then if you're associate, and then the cherry on top would be, like ILEA has a national conference, MPI has a national conference, NACE has a national then go attend those conferences because one, you're going to get education out of these, but also you're going to meet people from across the country. And how you were talking about earlier, it's like, you're going to meet people in different markets and you're going to start building these relationships. And that, I just got done. I'm now the past president of the NACE Foundation. And so, and our job is we're the nonprofit arm of NACE, but we are all about giving education scholarships and giving back education. Anything education falls into our market. But it's like every time we get together for our, like we're going to be in New Orleans this year and we'll all get together. It's like a family reunion. Everyone gets excited and it's one big fun party, but we're all there to learn and we all have fun and, but it's and something that everyone looks forward to doing every year. And all you WIPA people out there, I heard a rumor that they're really trying hard to start their own conference really, really soon. So.
Yeah, I love that. I think I just saw that the WIPA presidents are at Disneyland this week.
They are.
Which just looked like a blast. Like I'm friends with a couple of them and I was seeing like all of their like fun little adventures, which I think that's like one thing to think about if you're thinking about joining an association is that it can feel really large. It can feel very like daunting that there might just be a lot of people, but you will find your tribe within your association. Like you will find your people within it. So I think one of the things I want to hear from you, Kevin, is
That's a good point.
Yeah. Like, how do you network if you're like shy or like you're someone who's like, I don't know how to get into these rooms and feel okay, like feel confident.
And I'll be honest with you, I'm one of those people. I need a wingman or a wing woman with me, a wing person to go with me in there. And I'm
Same.
better. I'm better with a friend. But with that said, like I have a handful of friends that I know that are better by themselves. Like I mentioned we all kind of carpool from my area into the city or different things. Is like I have a friend that once we get into the city, it's like we never see them again until it's time to go. And it's just like. But then there's a group of us that just kind of work the room together, kind of thing. So
you're just like proof of life, please. Like
yeah, I mean, and it's that's the. So you got to find what's comfortable for you. And this is going to sound silly too, is I'm big on researching the event. Like if you can find out who's coming, maybe there's someone you want to make a connection with. So you can kind of prepare like, hey, I know this person, check out their social media ahead of time, which it sounds a little creepy, but when you start talking to them, maybe you can get an organic conversation going more easily because you know a little bit about them instead of having that awkward, what do you do? How long you been in business? Just kind of generic questions. You can have a little bit more of a deeper, relationship. But the other thing too is where I think a lot of people is they go in and brag about themselves and brag and brag and brag. But when you go to these events, it's about listening. You need to listen to people. And then maybe, and the whole time you're there, you're trying to find a connection. So with, wear an outfit that makes you feel comfortable. Don't show up minutes before, like this, we call it pregame, but we would go and pregame at have a glass of wine at a bar or a hotel that's close to the event, kind of thing. Or if it's at a hotel, we go to the lobby bar and just, so then we can all kind of decompress from getting there and traveling and then, relax for a minute and you go in there with a better frame of mind, so to speak. Then I think when you're in there is have business cards. I think people still forget business cards. And that
they still exist, guys.
They still exist, but to the point where like someone's like, "Oh, I'll tap your phone," but you tap my phone, it's going to go in my phone. I'm never going to remember it. But you hand me a piece of paper, I'm going to slip it in my pocket, and then at the end of the night, I'm going to bring it out, and then I'm going to have more of a physical connection with you instead of zonk, here's my contact from my Apple phone, so to speak, or DM me on Instagram, kind of thing. So the other thing too is I've seen so people go wrong is don't be a lurker. And that's something that I always, so don't like stand over people's shoulders. Like I always say, if the group is closed off, don't try to join, so that's the biggest thing I've seen where people try to do, and it's just awkward. But if people are open, introduce yourself, tell them what you do, and that's a good way. But also don't be, I call it, you walk around the room and you pass out your business card to every single, like you bring a stack of 100 business cards and your goal is to give to every single person. And you just walk up, here's my card, here's my card, here's my card, and walk away. You're going to get nothing out of it. So. And then
it's wild to think there's still people doing that.
There is.
It just boggles my brain. But I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. People would do that.
Yeah. And it's funny. I just recently saw someone do that. We just had our MPI gala at the end of, 2025. And I just saw someone literally at the gala, because the gala is more like celebration. It's not really about networking, but they were walking around like passing out the car, just trying to get them to everybody. And I'm like, you're going to get nothing about it. But I always think if you go into the event trying to meet 2 to 3 new people, and that's a good goal. Like if you can't meet everyone at the event, it's impossible. But if you go in there with have some kind of goal. I saw on the guest list that, Susie Jones is going to be there and I want to meet Susie Jones. So, that's a good goal. Or I want to go in there, I'm going to walk away with 3 new business cards, and maybe make 3 new connections that I'm going to follow up with and try to, have a connection or start a relationship with, so to speak. Because if you go in there and try to meet everyone, you're going to fail. You're going to fail. So.
It's funny to think that like people are probably listening to this conversation and be like, Aislinn and Kevin have never in their life felt nervous or like awkward in these rooms. And I can tell you right now, I spent many years feeling very awkward, but I would almost like tell myself, I was like, this is mandatory. It's a non-negotiable that you make a connection. I don't care how you do it, but you're going to be kind. You're going to smile. You are one smile away from making a friend. So let's do it.
Well, it's funny you say that. A smile goes a long way. It really does. Because you'll see people that have, I don't know if I can cuss on your podcast, but they'll have the resting bitch face, you know, and they're just standing there and they have the resting bitch face and they, you know, and you're not welcoming in any way. So if you walk by someone, smile, or even just say, hey, how are you? As you're you may be even walking to go get food, or you're walking to go to the bathroom or wherever, and you walk by, just smile at people, because you never know, you might come back from getting food or come back from the restroom, and then next thing you know, that person will smile at you again, and a couple smiles turns into, hi, how are you? I'm Kevin, you know, what do you do? Nice to meet you, know, and then it could start a relationship, you know, because it's awkward at first, but the more you do it, the more people you get to know, and the easier and easier it gets. And that, I think that's a big thing to remember too, is it's really hard the first year, you know, and it gets easier as you go in, and the more you attend, the more you go, the more people you get to know, and then it just gets easier and easier as you go as well.
And if you're listening to this and you're like, okay, well, I'm a pro at this. Like I go to association events, I go to like membership events, like all these different things. And I do know a lot of people, but I feel like I want to like get to know more people. One of my favorite things to do is let me introduce you to my friend. That is like, if you can do that on a networking day, it is one of the most beautiful things you can do, because you get to hype up your friend and be like, hey, like, do you know Sarah? She's a wedding photographer in X, Y, and Z, like, and she just got published in this place. And like, she had a new puppy this year or something, like whatever it is. If you can do that, it takes the like awkwardness out of it. Kevin, I'm not sure if you've ever like done that before.
No, well, I have done it. There was in our local NACE chapter, Gigi was the queen of the connecting. She'd meet someone and she would literally grab them by the hand and walk them over and go, you two need to know each other because of this and that. And so there is, I would say that's like the A+ or the, 5-star, whatever, however you want to rate it. If you are a connector at a networking group, you have reached a whole nother level, because if you connect, person A with person B, and they are able to do business, or there is some kind of connection there, it's going to come back to you in appreciation, in business referrals, and all that above. And then you get to be known as, wow, you're a really good person. They connected me with X, Y, and Z. So there's a lot of power in being a connector.
I am one of those people. Like, I know thousands of people across the country, and if I can like Rolodex my like list of people and be like, this person and this connection over here, because I remember this one time this person said this thing.
Yeah.
If I can make those connection points, it makes me happy, because I'm like, oh, cool. 2 people who may have never met before are now getting to possibly work together.
Yeah.
That makes me feel like, I don't know, good karma in the world. So like, if you're one of those people, be those people.
Well, and then it eventually comes back to you. You know what I'm saying? It all, karma is the B word. I won't cuss anymore on your podcast, but you know what I'm saying? But it's just, so if you're doing good's going to come back. If you're being not a good person, you're going to get, bad's going to come back to you as well. So, one thing I was going to think, we should probably talk about things not to do.
Yes, please do that, because I want to hear your thoughts on it.
Because it's one, like, show up like a hot mess. You know what I'm saying? Like you literally like walk in and like all disheveled and walk in. I've seen that so many times, is when they walk in as a hot mess. The other thing is watch your alcohol. It's fun to cut, like at a gala, cut loose a little bit, but you don't want to be known as, we got to watch, we got to watch Susie Jones over there, because every time she shows up to our networking event, she gets drunk, so you don't want to be one of those people. You don't want to be that awkward, we talked about it, where you walk around your business card and just dropping it off. But
or you walk around on your phone either.
Oh, yes, that's a good one. Very good. Yeah. Stand in the corner and just look at your phone and not engage everyone. Because why are you even there if you're, doing that on the phone? That makes zero sense. But then I'm also involved in the Chamber of Commerce on the local level. And there is a gentleman that comes to the local Chamber of Commerce events is known as the Shrimper. And he's known as the Shrimper because anytime there is shrimp on the little, buffet or whatever they're having, he eats all the shrimp. And so like literally you'll see him with like 15 things. So you don't want to have someone to create a nickname about you, if that makes sense. So
yeah, you don't so funny though.
You don't want to become the Shrimper. And this gentleman is involved in multiple chamber events, and it's hilarious because someone go, oh, there's the shrimp. Like it's like become like a known name. So you don't want to become the Shrimper as well. So I love my glass of wine, but I've learned to hey, a glass of wine is more than enough for me at a networking event, if I even drink at all. Because I find that usually I'm talking so much that I rarely eat at during the cocktail time, and I rarely drink. It's not a normal, because I'm there to work, so to speak. And then if we sit down and there's a dinner, then obviously I'm going to eat and have a glass of wine at that time. But I'm there to work, not to drink and not to do all that stuff. So, don't be, and the biggest thing, just if you're going to be walking into the event and they've already sat down for dinner, and I was going to say, just don't, even though you paid for it, don't even show up, because you're going to get nothing out of it and you're going to look like a disheveled mess walking in. So.
Yeah. And people I think it's important that it's not just you look like a mess. People are taking social cues and body language cues off of your energy. So I think it's really important to manage that and also just be intentional with it. If you are going there to network, attracts like. So are you there to attract other hot messes and other people who are have chaotic energy, or are you there to have business partnerships in the future?
And that's why we always would go. We would pregame for an event, and it wasn't more about having a cocktail or a drink before we go. It was more about we'd get to the city, commuting to the city. Without traffic for us is about 50 minutes to an hour, and then you add traffic in there, it could be 2.5 hours for us. It would take us to get to San Francisco. So we just need that stress from being in the car released, and you need to be in a good frame of mind. So we would always try to show up at least 30 minutes. The event starts at 5. We're going to try to get to the hotel or wherever by 4:30, just so we can relax.
And I'll give you guys just a little bit of kind of mindset-y things here, just because I think it's relevant. So one of the things that you can do to help reset your nervous system and to kind of go from chaos to de-stressing is you can go into the bathroom and put cold water on your wrist, and that will help you. Having that cold exposure will help you to get into a more calm state. There's also different types of breathing that you can do that you can literally do this in a corner. You can literally go to the bathroom for 2 minutes and reset your nervous system. So even if you are walking into this feeling nervous, it doesn't mean that the entire experience has to be nervous. You can reset at any point.
And again, if you're nervous, find a friend. Go with a friend, because that'll really, or make a friend, really quickly. But it'll really help you. It'll help relax you having someone that you're comfortable with.
Yeah. And I think that I hope that people were listening to this were okay, I'm actually excited to join an association, or I'm excited to spend more energy and focus on the associations that I'm already a part of. So I am so grateful that we got to have this conversation, because you're such a wealth of knowledge on these things. So Kevin, can you tell people how they can find you, how they can work with you, where they can connect with you?
So you can find me, our websites are fantasysound.com and weddingiq.com. I am Kevin at fantasysound.com and Kevin at weddingiq.com. Really easy to find us there. You can find us FSES events on Instagram, WeddingIQ. There's an underscore in there somewhere on Instagram. And then even on our podcast, Now That I'm Engaged, How Do I Get Married, and Mind Your Wedding Business. You can find us. We both have Instagrams there as well. So lots of ways to connect. And if you see me at an event, please tell me and come up and say hi. And I'd love to see that.
Yeah, go find a friendly face at an event where Kevin's at.
Well, it's real quick to end real quick. I'm getting ready to go to Cater Source, and I'm speaking this year, but I don't have there's nobody from my local market, so I'm already this thing is not until March. I'm already getting a little nervous about going because I'm going to be by myself, and so I'm going to have to work really hard at everything we just talked about to really to relax myself and to really meet a friend and not not go grab a burger or a pizza and then go up to my hotel room and hide, like go out and actually meet people and see people and all that kind of stuff. So
you'll have to put this episode on and listen to your own advice.
I know. Because the struggle's real. Even someone like myself has been doing it a long time. I still get stressed about it. So
yeah, pro athletes still get stressed before events, but they have the resources and tools that they are equipped with to walk into the thing that they need to walk into and do the thing they need to do. So same here. Even if you're a pro at this, you might still get nerves, and that's okay.
Yeah, that's okay. So.
Well, Kevin, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. It was really a joy to get to connect with you and talk with you about this stuff.
It was a pleasure. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
All right, friends, I will see you on the next episode. All of Kevin's information is going to be in the show notes, and I hope you have a beautiful day.